When the two armed helicopters arrived above Blizzard City, Zhang Yi stared outside the window cautiously. Sure enough, the city was currently under martial law, and soldiers with live ammunition were stationed everywhere. This confirmed the failure of the Heavenly God Team's operation. Zhang Yi couldn't help but feel a little regretful. Although he didn't have much contact with Deng Shintong, he still admired that guy's character. The armed helicopters landed safely without any mishap at the indoor airport, and seconds after, the doors were opened. Zhang Yi was the first to get out, followed by Liang Yu, then the rest of his entire team. At this moment, his first priority was to find Bailey Chongqing to inquire about the situation first. However, the moment the group got out of the armed helicopter, they saw more than a dozen Yenyun guards patiently waiting outside. One of them took the lead, and judging by his demeanor, he was probably a senior officer. "Welcome back, Mr. Zhang Yi. Thank you for your outstanding contribution in this battle. You killed 4 members of Eclipse Moon single-handedly and restored the dignity of our Jiangnan region. No, the entire Huashu nation." The officer's tone was full of admiration and excitement. As a senior member of the Yenyun troops, he certainly knew what happened in Jiangning Square and how difficult it was for Zhang Yi to complete this task, given that the captain of the famous god team only managed to accomplish a tiny fraction of what Zhang Yi did. When Mo Zhongning, Li Weihai, and Yuan Hao in the background heard this, they were totally stunned and completely speechless. And as they recall what they said earlier, they lowered their heads in embarrassment. Anyway, the officer glanced to the side, and a soldier immediately rushed over with a plate covered with white silk in his hands. In it were some black cards which looked like metal and synthetic materials. The officer took out a black card and handed it to Zhang Yi. "This is the points card you got from this operation. With this card, you can make purchases in Blizzard City and exchange various supplies at the headquarters. The total points you got from this operation were 420 million points. The value of points is similar to the currency before the end of the world. It's just that the price level is much higher than before the end of the world, so strictly speaking, the purchasing power of points is also stronger than the money before the end of the world." Zhang Yi's eyes lit up immediately. He took the points card, approached the Yenyun senior officer with a smile, and placed his arm around his shoulders. "With this thing, I can buy anything, right?" The senior officer simply whispered honestly. "Well, some materials such as weapons and equipment made with cutting-edge technology requires permission to purchase. However, judging from your achievements, most of the materials will be open to you." Zhang Yi smiled with satisfaction, excited about Blizzard City's weapons and equipment made with advanced technology. Especially, the battle suit he was currently wearing. "Where can I go to exchange these points for weapons and equipment? Is it the place where I received the weapons before?" Zhang Yi still smiled with satisfaction. "Yes, it is there. Your scorecard is of a high level, so you can open the corresponding supply warehouse, however, you can't go anywhere for now." Zhang Yi looked at him in surprise and asked if there was anything else. The officer replied, saying that they have received orders from the higher-ups that Zhang Yi can't leave yet, and he needs to stay in the designated area for the next period of time. Also, any action needs to be reported to the higher-ups. Everyone was bewildered. After all, this was equivalent to house arrest. Zhang Yi lowered his head and pondered for a moment. Then a meaningful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. It seems that the defeat in this battle had had a huge impact on Blizzard City, so much so that the higher-ups want to control the situation and can only keep those of us who know the situation quiet for the time being. "Okay, as you wish." Zhang Yi did not refuse and cooperated with a smile. If he really wants to leave, no one can keep him anyway. And after all, space travel ignores all physical existence. The officer breathed a sigh of relief and gestured to the side. "Then please follow me." The 3 followed him to a black car as the others were naturally taken away by the medical department. Shortly after, they arrived at a new area which was in Area A. It was a place similar to a villa area, specifically a single-family villa with a small courtyard and a 2-story building. Looking at the entire Blizzard City, this place was also a top-level living space. The officer showed them a villa and indicated that they would be staying there temporarily. And if they need anything, they can contact the Yenyun soldiers around. "Anyway, I wish you a pleasant stay in the future." Zhang Yi nodded to him to express his gratitude as the officer got in the car and left the villa. Around the villa, however, there were 4 Yenyun guards with live ammunition guarding the 4 directions. They were to guard and monitor Zhang Yi if he tries to leave. Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows and said lightly, "It seems that things have really gotten out of hand." Inside, Flower jumped on the sofa and immediately made herself at home. Liang Yu's expression at this moment was a little worried. Was the Jiangnan district placing them under house arrest after the contributions they just made? Why are they treating them like this? Zhang Yi shrugged. What else could it be? It must be because of the failure of this battle that the situation in Blizzard City has changed. and may even lead to a power struggle among the top leaders. Who knows? In short, as long as it does not threaten our safety, it doesn't matter. I don't care about other things. Based on his outstanding performance in this battle, the top leaders of Blizzard City will definitely try their best to win him over. Judging from the current treatment, Zhang Yi even thinks that they would try to make him a captain. If that proves to be true, then he has to find a way to refuse it when the time comes. It's really troublesome. He naively thought that he would be fine if he hid himself, but his witty mind, sharp insight, and powerful spatial ability could not be concealed. Zhang Yi covered his forehead, feeling a little helpless. Alas, being too good is also a kind of trouble. On the other hand, Liang Yu couldn't be as calm as him. After thinking for a long time, she told Zhang Yi about her desire to know the situation back at the shelter. Zhang Yi, should we call home and report that we are safe? I don't know what the situation in Tianhai City will be like now. Tell them so that they don't worry. Besides, I am more worried about one thing. Jiangning City is not far from Tianhai City. If Eclipse Moon escapes to Tianhai City, it will be impossible to defend it with their current strength. Zhang Yi didn't consider this point, because according to the intelligence he had obtained before, Eclipse Moon's goal was to go to the Central Plains area, not to stay on the coast. But he took out his satellite phone and made a call. The call, being encrypted, quickly connected as Yang Xinxin's worried voice came through. Her tone was very urgent. Big brother, how are you in Blizzard City? We are almost scared to death. The explosion of the god of death of love in Jiangning City could be sensed even in Tianhai City. It even caused all of our electronic equipment to temporarily lose their functionality. Zhang Yi heard her worry and smiled. Don't worry, we are all fine. Is there anything unusual in Tianhai City recently? Yang Xinxin replied calmly at the other end. Still as calm as usual, nothing special. Nothing happening is the best news. In any case, Zhang Yi hopes that his base camp can remain peaceful. I have to tell you something, but you must remember to keep it a secret. It's fine if you're the only one who knows it. The others in the shelter don't need to know for the time being. Blizzard City's mission to defeat Eclipse Moon has failed, and their current situation or status is unknown. Tianhai City is very close to Jiangning City, so don't leave the shelter. If you find anything wrong, notify me immediately and hide in the underground basement. Also, warn Xiao Honglian and the others, but don't tell them about Eclipse Moon. Just tell them to be careful of everything around them and be ready to hide in their shelters at any time. With the safety level of the shelter, even if someone in Eclipse Moon escaped the god of death of love to Tianhai City, it would be impossible for them to break through in a short time. After listening to Zhang Yi's words, Yang Xinxin frowned slightly. Okay, I'll remember that, brother. In addition, I have also done some research on Eclipse Moon and found some very interesting information. I will send it to you after I sort it out. Surprise flashed across Zhang Yi's eyes as he replied curiously. Oh really? The Jiangnan district has also conducted some investigations on Eclipse Moon, but the results were limited. How did you do it? Big brother, what did the programmers in the Jiangnan district do for you to compare them with me? Even though they have the unique equipment advantages of the region, they are not at the same level as me in terms of technology. Zhang Yi smiled and agreed. That's true. After all, they all have iron rice bowls. And the world's truly top technical machine masters, especially hackers, almost never work in official institutions. Yang Xinxin was the best example. The two chatted casually for a while. And at the end, Zhang Yi didn't know why, but he subconsciously told her to pay attention to her safety and also remember to protect herself. Yang Xinxin's smile from ear to ear, and a strange blush appeared on her face. She was filled with joy to be missed by Zhang Yi. Big brother, did you call only Xinxin? Or did you call the others also? Zhang Yi took a moment to answer at the other end. Of course I called you first. I knew it. Big brother really loves Xinxin the most. However, the reason why she was the only one called was that Zhang Yi felt that only Yang Xinxin could handle this kind of news calmly. If it was Zhou Qir or the others, they would be frightened and anxious. Don't worry, big brother. Xinxin would neither let you down nor become a burden. She can protect herself. I have never regarded you as a burden. Xinxin is the best, and has always been a good helper to brother. Yang Xinxin nodded slightly. Well, thank you, brother. I have something else to do, so I'll hang up first. The two ended the call after saying their goodbyes. Yang Xinxin finally made a decision after the call. So, with long strides, she resolutely left the control room step by step. When she arrived at the medical room, Zhou Qir was there experimenting with her ability. Yang Xinxin pushed the door open and walked in. She had a smile on her face and determined look in her eyes. Sister, let's start the experiment. This request made Zhou Qir's face change. Have you thought about it? Xinxin, that experiment is very dangerous and extremely painful. Perhaps for humans, there is almost no more painful experience than this. Yang Xinshin placed her hands behind her back and looked up at Zhou Qi with a playful smile. Sister, Xinshin also hopes to have a stronger power to help her brother. So, let's get started. Zhou Qi saw Yang Xinshin smile with a firm expression and understood her determination. Okay then. She sighed softly and took Yang Xinshin to an operating table. Then, as Yang Xinshin climbed and lay down on the operating table with a smile, Zhou Qi expressionlessly buckled her hands, legs and body with a restraining belt to prevent her from struggling in the next experiment. Throughout the whole process, Yang Xinshin had a smile on her face, which was kind of comforting. Zhou Qi felt a little reluctant. She took a deep breath and reminded Yang Xinshin for the last time. It's not too late to regret now. I'm really afraid that you can't bear this kind of pain. However, Yang Xinshin slowly closed her eyes and stated for them to get started. Zhou Qi said nothing more. She knew in her heart that Yang Xinshin's choice was correct. Although this method may not be effective according to their long-term research, the answer obtained from theory is that this experiment is worth trying. Zhou Qi pushed over a transparent shelf. It was an acrylic box that just covered Yang Xinshin's head. After the device was installed, Zhou Qi connected a heart rate detection device to Yang Xinshin. Looking at Yang Xinshin, who closed her eyes and waited for the experiment to start, she rushed over to the device and pressed the button that opened the valve that's connected to the acrylic box in the water tank. The water began to flow into the acrylic box and quickly submerged Yang Xinshin's head. Yang Xinshin's face showed a painful look. She struggled hard, which was out of instinct. After more than a minute, her struggle weakened and her heart rate was also rapidly decreasing. Zhou Qi's eyes were fixed on the electrocardiogram. The electrocardiogram completely turned into a straight line. But Zhou Qi did not rush to drain the water from the acrylic box, but stared at Yang Xinshin, then her watch. She was still waiting. 2 minutes passed, and there was no change in Yang Xinshin's body. Zhou Qi quickly drained the water from the acrylic box and activated her ability. Then she placed her glowing green hands directly into Yang Xinshin's chest. Holding her heart with one hand and her lungs with the other, she began to use her ability to help her do cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Not long after, Yang Xinshin's heartbeat resumed. She struggled on the operating table and spat out a mouthful of water. However, she did not feel any changes in her body. Did the experiment fail? Yang Xinshin's expression was a little lost. Zhou Qi reminded calmly, I have studied your cells, and they are indeed affected by gamma rays and have partially mutated. However, this phenomenon is common in most creatures after the end of the world, and it does not mean that you will definitely develop superpowers. So you need to be mentally prepared, although near-death experience is the best stimulation for the human body. If you cannot awaken your superpowers in this state, there are not many other means you can use. Zhou Qi looked at Yang Xinshin's distressed state. In order to awaken her superpowers, she actually chose such a painful way. Originally, you could have an ice soul. Zhou Qi understood Yang Xinshin's position in Zhang Yi's mind. A computer genius with a super brain, she should have been Zhang Yi's first choice to receive an ice soul. Yang Xinshin looked at the shadowless lamp above her head expressionlessly. I have always believed that an ice soul awakening method is incomplete. Sister, have you forgotten the conclusion we came to from our analysis? What really determines the strength of a superpower should be the mind. When a person is on the verge of death, the obsession in their heart through their thoughts will turn into their ability after awakening. The stronger the obsession of dying, the stronger the superpower will be. The abilities you three have obtained are all auxiliary, which confirms my thoughts. And if I want to get a more powerful ability, I must use this method to make my own mind reach the extreme. This is why Yang Xinshin refused to use an ice soul in the first place. She has her own ideas. She wants to make herself a unique existence around Zhang Yi. Zhou Qi took a deep breath and tried to reason with her once again. Even if you don't have superpowers, you can still help Zhang Yi very well. Yang Xinshin shook her head. That's different. After all, no one is considered fragile if their abilities are too strong. And she also understood that in Zhang Yi's mind, she would always be that weak little girl who needed protection. Zhang Yi didn't know that she also hoped to face all kinds of dangers with him, fighting side by side. Zhou Qi reached out to untie the restraints on Yang Xinshin, but she coldly told her to proceed. Zhou Qi's hand froze in midair. She was shocked and couldn't even speak. The feeling of being on the verge of death was something no one wants to experience. But this cousin of hers actually plans to do it again? Yang Xinshin looked at a visibly stunned Zhou Qi and said with a smile, Aren't you here with me? I won't really die. But next time, I suggest you wait a little longer. Let me feel the despair of death. Maybe it will be more effective. Zhou Qi stared at her cousin in front of her. and her body began to tremble slightly because of fear. This cousin of mine is so scary. But she couldn't refuse Yang Xinshin's request, so she could only be cruel and start the second round of experiments. With her, Yang Xinshin would not die. But the taste of crazy testing on the edge of death countless times would make your scalp numb just thinking about it. Meanwhile, after the remaining troops of the Eclipse Moon left Jiangning City, they returned to Linhai City. Although they defeated the God Squad and killed Deng Shintong in their recent battle, they also suffered heavy losses. Even when they had encountered powerful enemies back in Kanto, this development of Eclipse Moon was truly unprecedented. But every time back then, they were saved with the help of Mayumi Takeuchi. This group of people returned to the icebreaker they hid in the harbor and slowly left the shore. Led by Fengguangyu and Jin, the remaining 8 people silently mourned in the direction of the land. Even though they were just a group of desperate people who were temporarily formed, the friendship of the journey together had been real, so they mourned the 5 deaths from the bottom of their hearts. After the mourning, Fengguangyu and Jin put on his gray newsboy cap and stated with a smug look, "This battle was beyond our expectations." And Mayumi's prediction was also affected, but overall we won. Next, we need to create a massive unrest for them. Then take the opportunity to negotiate with the Jiangnan region. Hearing this, Mayumi Takeuchi's eyes was a little downcast. She lowered her head and apologized regretfully. "I'm sorry everyone. They died mainly because of me. I didn't do my duty well and something went wrong with my divination." Fengguangyu and Jin heard this and hurriedly turned towards her, smiled and gently held her soft shoulders. "Mayumi, this is not your fault. It was expected that Hanakio would get into trouble. You wanted to save her, but none of us expected that the captain of the God team would suddenly appear around the base camp. However, the death of Kamaya and the others were somewhat strange." Fengguangyu and Jin's eyes flashed with a hint of darkness. Those 4 people were important fighting forces, and now they have all been killed, which has some impact on them. At this time, Jinguji Saikairo pushed his glasses and said coldly, "Among that group of people, I met a very dangerous guy." Everyone looked at Jinguji Saikairo with a curious look. "Dangerous guy? What kind of dangerous guy? Is he more dangerous than Deng Shintong?" Fengguangyu and Jin asked with narrowed eyes. "No, it's a completely different feeling." Jinguji Saikairo recalled what happened that day, and for some reason, he felt a chill ran down his spine. Kamaya Negemichi and Shinichiro Akutsu were both killed in a state of serious injury. But no matter how serious their injuries were, they could not be killed by bullets. He was a very powerful user of space-related abilities. Not only did the bullets he fired possess a power far beyond that of an ordinary person, he could also directly devour 2 of my Shikigami. As soon as these words came out, everyone present showed a serious expression. After all, Jinguji Saikairo was also at the forefront of their Eclipse group in terms of combat power, especially his Shikigami. They all have extremely powerful strength, each of which is no less than a Delta-level mutant. So if a marksman with a space-related abilities can restrain Jinguji Saikairo's ability, then he was obviously of a high level. Subsequently, Tsukamoto Nobunaga calmly added, "I seem to have some impression of the guy you just mentioned. He was one of the people pursued by Nanako Agatsuma and Takizawa Takashi. I think they probably died at his hands." Obviously, everyone was shocked. In other words, 4 of their 5 dead teammates were killed by the same person. Who is this guy? Fengguangyu and Jin thought of Mayumi Takeuchi's performance during the battle, and his expression was terribly serious. Could this guy be the one who made Mayumi's prophecy invalid? After connecting various clues, things became clear. Mayumi Takeuchi's prophecy could not predict everything about that person. Even in her prophecy, the characters with normal trajectories would have their fates changed once they intersected with this marksman. He is a person outside of fate, Mayumi Takeuchi murmured. In the next operation, if this person is involved again, we will be in a very passive position. Unless we find a way to kill him, Fengguangyu and Jin reassured her. Don't worry, I still want to know more about him first. There will be a chance to kill him later. The icebreaker slowly left the coast and headed towards the southern waters. Meanwhile, a few days had passed and Zhang Yi was still under house arrest. Inside the villa, he took out the bodies of the 4 members of the Eclipse group he killed from his alternate space. These 4 people were all elite Delta level. If he absorbed their power, he will definitely become stronger. Zhang Yi crouched down and put his hand on the forehead of one of the corpses, his eyes full of expectations. Shortly after, that familiar feeling appeared and the co-devouring process was initiated. But this time, that refreshing feeling did not appear. He did absorb some power, but the overall feeling he got was not much improved. What's going on? Zhang Yi didn't understand what was happening in front of him. In fact, this phenomenon had already appeared before. When he killed the mutants in Days City, he absorbed their essence, but he felt that his ability was almost not improved. He originally thought that their strength was too weak, but at the moment, the Eclipse Moon member he absorbed was not a weakling. But the effect after absorption was still minimal. Could it be that I have reached a bottleneck? Such an idea suddenly emerged in his mind. And as he thought it over, he also felt that it was very reasonable. If mutants can devour and evolve infinitely, then everyone will become a mutant with no upper limit. This incident shows that the ability of co-devouring also has its upper limit. If Zhang Yi wants to evolve again, he must devour more powerful mutants. It is indeed like this, but this is not a bad thing. At least in this way, there will be no gap between me and the investigation captains in Blizzard City who have a lot of resources and are fully trained by the top management. Looking at the other 3 corpses on the ground, Zhang Yi thought for a while and called Flower and Liang Yu over. Rather than devouring it and not getting much improvement, it was better to improve the combat power of those around him. Liang Yu was surprised by this gesture and felt extremely grateful, but Flower, like a true boss, didn't give a shit about that. Unexpectedly, she only managed to devour one, while Liang Yu swallowed the essence of the other 2 easily. However, she was very satisfied with it and even let a heavy sigh. You see, the essence of these mutants were very powerful for her to digest in a short time. But the same couldn't be said about Liang Yu. Zhang Yi saw the disappointed look on her face and knew she didn't evolve to her expectations. The foundation of a martial arts master is too deep after all, and he doesn't know what level she would evolve to in the future. Flower too, for that matter. Zhang Yi decided to call Bailey Chongqing and ask what the new direction of the regional top management was. However, he couldn't get through to him. He guessed that he's also probably dealing with the aftermath of the battle too. Anyways, Zhang Yi decided to use this leisure time to study the information about the Eclipse group sent by Yang Xinxin. Of course, this information was very different from what Blizzard City gave them. It's more detailed and their abilities were extremely well explained. When Zhang Yi turned to the information named Takeuchi Mayumi, his fingers that were flipping through the information stopped. Mayumi, a novice ancient shrine maiden, the 126th generation descendant of the Takeuchi family. Her ancestor was Takeuchi Suken, an official in the Murai era, and this title was passed down from generation to generation. The person who inherited the name of Takeuchi Suken had the same duties as the historian of Huashu. However, the way of recording history was not in writing, but by word of mouth and was engraved in the mind. In later generations, the position of Takeuchi Suken disappeared, but the duties of the Takeuchi family have always been upheld. Each generation of descendants will strictly follow the group training and engrave the history of Japan. It's interesting that this job is passed down from generation to generation. But according to the conclusion of superpowers, if everyone's superpowers are related to their obsessions, then shouldn't this person's superpower be her memory? Impossible. This ability is useless then. Or the Takeuchi family. Could it be a book of prophecy? Such a bold idea emerged in Zhang Yi's mind.